The Galactic Council chamber was a marvel of interstellar engineering, a grand amphitheater carved into the rocky surface of the neutral moon Eurydice. The walls shimmered with holographic projections of stars and galaxies, symbols of unity that the Council often claimed but rarely achieved. Representatives from dozens of civilizations sat in tiered rows, their forms as varied as the worlds they hailed from. Some were gaseous beings held in containment suits, others reptilian with scales glinting under the artificial starlight. Amidst this array of species stood Elias Carter, one of the few humans present and the sole ambassador from Earth. Elio adjusted his suit, a simple yet dignified design that emphasized practicality over ostentation. His eyes, sharp and observant, scanned the room. The tension was palpable, a heavy weight that settled over the chamber as the latest session began. The Eltran Dominion and the Rignar Trade Union were at odds again, their feud threatening to destabilize trade routes vital to the conquered's fragile economy. Elias had intervened in similar disputes before, relying on his calm demeanor and sharp intellect to find compromises. Today, however, the stakes felt different. The Eltran representative, a hulking figure with crimson scales and a mane of quills, slammed his clawed hand on the podium. "The Rignar have violated our territorial sovereignty," his voice boomed, amplified by the chamber's acoustics. "Their ships have encroached on our space, stealing resources that rightfully belong to the Dominion." The Rignar delegate, a creature with an elongated neck and iridescent feathers, hissed in response. "Lies. Your borders are expanding illegally. We merely reclaimed what is ours." The room erupted into a cacophony of voices. Elias raised his hand, requesting the floor. When the council chair granted him permission, he stepped forward, his voice steady and clear. "Honored delegates, this hostility benefits no one. We are here to preserve peace, not to escalate conflict. Let us—" The Eltran representative interrupted, his voice dripping with disdain. "And what does a human know of peace? Your species has spent most of its history at war with itself." Elias held his ground. "That history has taught us the cost of conflict. It has also taught us the value of cooperation. We urge both parties to consider—" A commotion erupted behind him. Elias turned just in time to see an Eltran soldier storming into the chamber. The soldier's face was twisted in fury, his plasma blade igniting with a menacing hum. "Traitors!" the soldier bellowed. "The Rignar deserve annihilation, not negotiation." Before anyone could react, the soldier lunged. Elias instinctively stepped forward, placing himself between the soldier and the Rignar delegate. The blade struck him squarely in the chest. For a moment the chamber was silent, the air thick with shock. Elias staggered, his hand clutching the wound as his legs gave way. He collapsed to the floor, his lifeblood pooling beneath him. Delegates scrambled to their feet, shouting in disbelief and horror. The soldier, realizing the magnitude of his actions, stood frozen before being subdued by security forces. Elias Carter, the human ambassador who had dedicated his life to peace, was dead. The news reached Earth within hours. It was broadcast across every screen, the final moments of Elias Carter replayed over and over. The sight of the plasma blade piercing his chest, the look of shock on his face, the indifference of the Eltran soldier, it ignited a fury that swept through humanity like wildfire. In the sprawling city of New Geneva, the United Earth government convened an emergency session. The president, a composed woman named Amara Okoye, addressed the assembly with somber determination. Elias Carter was more than a diplomat. He was a symbol of humanity's place in the galaxy, a bridge between Earth and the stars. His murder is an affront to everything we stand for. Around the table, the faces of Earth's leaders reflected a shared resolve. Defense Secretary Alan Grayson leaned forward. "The Eltran Dominion must be held accountable. We cannot allow this to go unanswered." Amara nodded. "Agreed. We will demand the extradition of the soldier responsible. If the Eltran refuse, we must be prepared to act." The ultimatum was drafted and sent to the Dominion: surrender the killer or face the consequences. The Eltran response came swiftly. Chancellor Vorak, the Dominion's leader, appeared in a broadcast addressed to the entire galaxy. "Earth's demands are laughable," Vorak declared, his quills bristling. "Humans are a minor species, barely worthy of notice. We will not bow to their threats." The broadcast only fueled humanity's anger. Protests erupted across Earth, millions taking to the streets to demand justice. In the midst of the chaos, the UEG activated Protocol Solaris, a contingency plan developed in the shadow of Earth's troubled past. For decades, humanity had quietly prepared for the possibility of war, investing in advanced technologies and unconventional tactics. Now that preparation would be put to the test. Admiral Sarah Vallon stood on the bridge of the Erebus, Earth's flagship. The ship was a masterpiece of engineering, its sleek design concealing cutting-edge weaponry and advanced stealth capabilities. Around her, the rest of the Sol Defense Fleet hung in orbit, ready for their first combat deployment. Valen's gaze was fixed on the holographic display before her, which showed the positions of the Eltran fleets. "The Eltran Third Fleet is moving to intercept," her tactical officer reported. "Good," Valen replied. Her voice carried a calm confidence that inspired the crew. "They've underestimated us for too long. Let's show them what humanity is capable of." The first engagement was a calculated strike. Using their stealth technology, Earth's ships approached undetected and unleashed a barrage of railgun fire. The projectiles tore through the Eltran vessels, bypassing their energy shields and shattering their hulls. The battle was over in minutes, the remnants of the Eltran fleet retreating in disarray. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. The humans had defeated an Eltran fleet, a feat no one had anticipated. Speculation ran rampant. How had Earth, a so-called minor species, developed such advanced weaponry, and what else were they capable of? In the Dominion's capital, Chancellor Vorak convened his advisors. The reports from the front lines were grim. The humans were striking with precision, dismantling supply lines and destroying key installations. Worse, their actions were being broadcast to the galaxy, their message clear: humanity would not be trifled with. Vorak's chief advisor, a wiry Eltran with calculating eyes, spoke hesitantly. "Chancellor, the humans are transmitting a message. It's being broadcast across all known channels." "Play it," Vorak growled. The image of Admiral Valen filled the screen. Her expression was one of steely resolve, her words measured but firm. "This is Admiral Sarah Valen of the United Earth Fleet. We extend this message to every species in the galaxy. Elias Carter was not just a diplomat, he was a human being. His murder was an affront to our people, and we will not rest until justice is served. To the Eltran Dominion, you have underestimated humanity. You thought us weak, divided, and incapable of retaliation. Now you see the truth. We are united, and we will not stop until the one responsible for this crime faces judgment. The rest of the galaxy understand this. We are not conquerors. We are not aggressors. But we will defend our own no matter the cost. If you stand with us, you stand for justice. If you stand against us, you stand in our way." The transmission ended, leaving the room in silence. Vorak clenched his fists, his quills flaring in frustration. "They think they can dictate terms to us? We will crush them." But even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at him. The humans were unlike any enemy the Eltran Dominion had faced before. Their determination was unshakable, their technology a mystery. And as the war raged on, it became increasingly clear. The galaxy had underestimated Earth, and the consequences would be felt for generations to come. The bridge of the Erebus was a hive of activity, a mix of tension and purpose that crackled in the air like static electricity. Admiral Sarah Valen stood at the command console, her hands clasped tightly behind her back as she surveyed the tactical readouts floating in holographic displays around her. The Sol Defense Fleet, Earth's pride and joy, moved with precision and discipline. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, there was no hesitation, no faltering. Every crew member, from the bridge officers to the gunnery teams, carried a spark of the same fierce resolve. Humanity had been pushed too far. Now they would push back. The latest skirmish with the Eltran Dominion's forces had ended in decisive victory, leaving a swath of destroyed cruisers and fractured supply lines in Earth's wake. The debris of the engagement still floated in the blackness of space, silent witnesses to the power humanity had unleashed. It was a power the galaxy had never seen from Earth before. Cold, calculated, and overwhelming. The Eltran soldiers who had survived were now drifting through the void in escape pods, their desperate distress signals pinging faintly on long-range scanners. "Tactical report," Valen commanded, her voice calm and steady, though her sharp gaze betrayed the intensity of her focus. Commander Anders, her second-in-command, stepped forward. "The Eltran Third Fleet has been scattered, Admiral. Estimated losses on their side are over 80%. We've sustained minimal damage, no critical systems compromised." "Family disappearances?" Anders hesitated. "Their escape pods are within recovery range." "Orders?" Valen's jaw tightened, her mind racing through the implications. Recovering Eltran survivors could be seen as an act of mercy, but it might also invite accusations of weakness, something humanity could ill afford in this moment. She turned to her communications officer. "Transmit a message to the Galactic Council. We have neutralized an Eltran attack force that engaged without provocation. Notify them of the location of the escape pods. Their fate is the Council's responsibility, not ours." The officer nodded and began typing furiously. Valen's gaze returned to the holographic map. The Eltran Dominion's territory loomed large, its core worlds heavily fortified and its outer colonies surrounded by overlapping layers of defenses. This was not going to be a short war. Humanity's initial victories had been tactical, surgical strikes that exploited the Dominion's overconfidence. But now, as the shock of those defeats wore off, the Eltran war machine was mobilizing. It wouldn't be long before their response came in full force. "Ma'am," Anders said, lowering his voice, "we've been intercepting chatter from Dominion comm channels. It sounds like they're consolidating their fleets near Varrock Prime. Intelligence suggests it's a staging ground for a counteroffensive." Valen nodded, her mind already working through the implications. Varrock Prime was a key logistical hub, its orbital shipyards capable of producing fleets at a terrifying pace. If the Eltran Dominion was planning to strike back, this would be the place to hit them first. "Prepare the fleet," she said. "We'll strike Varrock Prime before they have a chance to regroup. I want a detailed battle plan within the hour." Anders saluted. "Understood, Admiral." As he left to relay her orders, Valen allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. She'd been in the Navy for nearly 3 decades, long enough to see humanity's transformation from a fractured collection of nations to a unified force capable of reaching for the stars. She'd fought in Earth's orbital skirmishes, overseen the construction of the first interstellar dreadnoughts, and now she was leading humanity's first war beyond the Sol system. It was a weighty responsibility, one she carried with a quiet determination. The stakes were nothing less than the survival of humanity's reputation and perhaps its future. Far away on the capital world of the Eltran Dominion, Chancellor Vorak paced the grand chamber of his war council. The room was carved from volcanic obsidian, its walls adorned with banners of conquest and glowing with the eerie red light of molten veins that ran beneath the surface. Around the massive central table sat his top military advisors, each one an imposing figure in their own right. Yet even here, among his most trusted allies, Vorak could feel the undercurrent of unease. The humans had been a nuisance when they joined the Galactic Concord, their naive ideals and incessant diplomacy grating on the more established powers, but now they had become something far more dangerous. Their unexpected victories had thrown the Dominion into disarray, exposing vulnerabilities that Vorak hadn't even considered. The reports from the front lines were grim. Entire fleets destroyed, supply chains severed, and outposts reduced to smoldering wreckage. It was as if the humans had been waiting for this moment, as if they'd been preparing for war all along. "This is unacceptable," Vorak roared, slamming his clawed hand on the table. The impact sent a tremor through the room, and the advisors flinched. How has a species as young and insignificant as the humans managed to inflict such damage? Our fleets are the pride of the galaxy, yet they've been torn apart as if they were nothing more than scrap. One of his generals, a stout Eltran with scarred scales and a cybernetic arm, cleared his throat. Chancellor, the humans have been using technology we've never seen before. Their weapons bypass our shields. Their ships are nearly impossible to detect until it's too late, and their tactics— Enough excuses, Vorak snarled. He loomed over the general, his quills bristling with anger. I want solutions, not explanations. The room fell silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a blade. Finally, the chief strategist spoke, his voice calm and measured. Chancellor, the humans are exploiting our predictability. They've studied our tactics, our formations, our doctrines. They know how we think, and they're using that knowledge against us. Then we must adapt, Vorak said, his voice low and dangerous. The humans have declared war on the Dominion. We will show them what that means. The strategist nodded. I recommend deploying the Iron Fang Armada to Varric Prime. It is our most experienced fleet, and its presence will send a clear message. Additionally, we should escalate our propaganda efforts within the Concord. Paint the humans as reckless warmongers who threaten galactic stability. If we can turn public opinion against them, their newfound allies may begin to waver. Vorak considered this, his claws tapping rhythmically against the table. The strategist's plan had merit, but it wasn't enough. He needed something more, something that would break the humans' resolve and remind the galaxy of the Dominion's supremacy. Very well, he said. Deploy the Iron Fang Armada to Varric Prime and prepare the Scorch Protocol. The advisors exchanged uneasy glances. The Scorch Protocol was a strategy of total annihilation, designed to leave no survivors and no evidence of mercy. It was a last resort, a weapon of fear that even the Dominion rarely used. But Vorak was beyond caring about appearances. The humans had to be crushed, no matter the cost. On the Erebus, preparations for the assault on Varric Prime were nearing completion. The fleet was assembling in a carefully calculated formation, each ship's role meticulously planned. Valen stood at the center of the bridge, her gaze fixed on the tactical display. Admiral, said Lieutenant Hargrove, the ship's intelligence officer, we've intercepted new orders from the Eltran High Command. They're deploying the Iron Fang Armada to Varric Prime. Valen's eyebrows lifted slightly. The Iron Fang Armada was one of the Dominion's most formidable fleets, a collection of battle-hardened warships that had earned their reputation through centuries of conquest. Facing them would not be easy, even with Earth's technological advantages. Good, she said. Let them come. The crew exchanged uncertain glances, but no one questioned her resolve. Valen had earned their loyalty through her leadership, her unshakable confidence, and her willingness to take risks that others would shy away from. If she believed they could win, they would follow her to the end. As the final preparations were made, Valen turned her attention to the crew. Open a channel to the fleet, she said. A moment later, her voice carried through every ship in the Armada. This is Admiral Valen. We are about to face the largest Eltran fleet humanity has ever encountered. They think they can intimidate us with their numbers, their reputation, and their history of conquest. But they have forgotten one simple truth. We are human. We do not back down. We do not break. And when they strike us, we strike back harder. Today we will show the galaxy what it means to stand against Earth. Good luck. Valen out. The response was immediate. Across the fleet, officers and crew erupted in cheers, their morale bolstered by her words. They knew the stakes, they knew the risks, but they also knew that they were fighting not just for survival, but for justice, for dignity, and for the memory of Elias Carter. As the fleet began its journey to Varric Prime, the stars around them seemed to shimmer with anticipation. The battle ahead would decide more than just the fate of a planet or a system. It would determine the course of history, and for humanity, there was no turning back. The air inside the war room aboard the Erebus was thick with tension as Admiral Sarah Valen studied the tactical readouts projected before her. The fleet was on its final approach to Varrock Prime, and every officer present understood the enormity of what was about to happen. Varrock Prime wasn't just another target. It was the beating heart of the Eltran Dominion's military machine. Orbital shipyards encircled the planet like a glittering crown, their immense structures churning out warships at an alarming rate. Defensive platforms bristling with weaponry formed a near-impenetrable perimeter, supported by dozens of warships from the feared Iron Fang Armada. Valen's eyes narrowed as she traced the movements of the Eltran fleet on the holographic map. The Iron Fang Armada had formed a classic defensive wedge, a tactic designed to funnel attackers into a narrow corridor of overlapping fire. It was an efficient formation, one the Eltran Dominion had used to devastating effect against other species. But Valen wasn't other species. She was human, and humanity thrived on finding cracks in the armor of the overconfident. "Admiral," Commander Anders said, stepping up beside her, "our stealth ships report that the Iron Fang Armada is holding position near the central shipyard. They're anchoring their formation around a dreadnought-class vessel, likely their flagship." "Good," Valen replied, her tone even. "The more predictable they are, the easier they are to break." Anders hesitated, then added, "There's one more thing, ma'am. Long-range scans show unusual energy readings near the planet's surface. It could be a new weapon, or something worse." Valen's jaw tightened. The Eltran Dominion was known for its ruthlessness, and the reports of the so-called Scorch Protocol had reached her desk weeks earlier. It was a tactic of total annihilation, a scorched earth strategy that left nothing but ash in its wake. If the Dominion intended to use it here, it meant they were willing to sacrifice their own assets to ensure humanity's destruction. The stakes were higher than ever. "Prepare all ships for engagement," Valen ordered, "and notify the fleet. No assumptions, no hesitation. This isn't just another battle, it's the turning point of the war." As the officers dispersed to carry out her orders, Valen remained at the map, her mind racing. The fleet was powerful, their technology unmatched in the galaxy, but she knew better than anyone that wars weren't won on firepower alone. They were won through strategy, timing, and an unyielding will to survive. The clock was ticking. The battle began as humanity's fleet emerged from its stealth formation, appearing like ghosts from the void. For a brief moment, the Eltran defenders hesitated, caught off guard by the sudden presence of their enemy. Then, the silence of space erupted into chaos. Railguns fired, their slugs tearing through Eltran shields and armor with terrifying precision. Missile swarms streaked through the darkness, guided by advanced AI systems that wove them past defensive turrets. Earth ships moved as one, their maneuvers synchronized in a deadly dance that outmatched the Dominion's rigid formations. The Iron Fang Armada responded with brutal efficiency. Plasma beams and energy cannons lashed out, lighting up the battlefield with deadly arcs of fire. Eltran fighters swarmed like angry hornets, their pilots skilled and relentless. But for every human ship that was hit, 3 Eltran vessels fell. Earth's technology, combined with the adaptive tactics of its fleet, was proving to be the decisive factor. Admiral Valen stood at the center of the bridge, her voice cutting through the cacophony of battle. "Focus fire on their flanks. Break their formation and force them to spread out. Once the wedge collapses, they'll lose their coordination." The fleet obeyed. Earth's destroyers and corvettes darted in and out of the Eltran formation, drawing fire away from the larger cruisers and carriers. As the Eltran forces tried to regroup, Valen unleashed her trump card, a squadron of stealth frigates armed with experimental gravitic disruptors. The weapons unleashed localized distortions in space-time, ripping apart the fabric of the Eltran formation and sending ships spiraling out of control. From the bridge of the Erebus, the carnage was both awe-inspiring and horrific. Valen could see the Eltran flagship, a towering dreadnought bristling with weaponry, holding its position at the center of the battle. Its shields were flickering, but its firepower remained overwhelming, forcing Earth's ships to keep their distance. "Target the flagship," Valen ordered. "Concentrate all long-range fire on its shield generators. We take that ship down and the rest of the fleet will crumble." Chancellor Vorak watched the battle from the safety of a command bunker on Varric Prime, his quills bristling with rage. The humans were winning. Despite the Dominion's superior numbers and experience, they were being outmaneuvered at every turn. It was an affront to everything Vorak believed, a humiliation he could not tolerate. "How is this possible?" he demanded, his voice echoing through the chamber. "They're just humans." The chief strategist, standing nervously at his side, replied, "They've adapted to our tactics, Chancellor. Their technology is more advanced than we anticipated, and their coordination—" "Enough!" Vorak roared. "Activate the Scorch Protocol. If we cannot win this battle, we will ensure the humans do not live to celebrate their victory." The order sent a chill through the room. The Scorch Protocol was a measure of last resort, a weapon of unparalleled destruction that would annihilate everything within its radius, including the Eltron forces still fighting in orbit. It was a sacrifice that Vorak was willing to make, but his advisors were less certain. "Chancellor, if we use the protocol, we'll destroy the shipyards and the planet's infrastructure. It will set our war effort back by years." "It will ensure our survival," Vorak snapped. "The galaxy must fear us more than it fears the humans. Do it." The strategist hesitated for a moment longer, then gave the order. On the Erebus, Valen's tactical officer suddenly called out, "Admiral, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations on the planet's surface. It's off the charts." Valen's stomach sank. She'd seen the classified reports on the Scorch Protocol, but she'd hoped it was nothing more than a rumor. Now it was clear that the Eldrin Dominion was desperate enough to unleash it. "What are we looking at?" she asked, her voice cold and precise. "It's some kind of cascade weapon," the officer replied. "If it goes off, it'll create a chain reaction that destroys everything in orbit, and likely the planet itself." Valen's mind raced. If the weapon was activated, the battle would end in catastrophe for both sides. But there was no time to evacuate, no time to regroup. Humanity had to act now or risk losing everything they'd fought for. "Get me a detailed scan of that energy source," she ordered. "We need to know exactly where it's coming from."